The power grid failed at 23:47 hours, plunging half the colony into darkness. Rylan Torres barely noticed. His fingers moved through the tangled circuitry by muscle memory alone, rewiring connections in the maintenance shaft 3 stories above the residential sectors. Rain hammered the dome overhead, the 3rd storm this month, each one worse than the last, as if the planet itself resented their presence. He'd been watching her for weeks. The Calvary woman who stood alone in the plaza during storms, face tilted toward the sky like she was drinking the lightning. He told himself it was curiosity, nothing more. A widower's idle fascination with another outsider in a colony that tolerated neither. But he was lying. At 01:30, Rylan finished the temporary repairs and took his usual shortcut through the central courtyard. He told himself he wasn't hoping to see her. Another lie. She was there. Mira stood in the center of the empty plaza, soaked through, her simple garment clinging to her purple skin. Lightning split the sky, and her eyes were closed, expression serene despite the violence overhead. Something about the moment felt sacred, private, something he shouldn't witness. He turned to leave. "Engineer." Her voice cut through the rainfall like a blade wrapped in silk. "You watch me often." Rylan's heart slammed against his ribs. He turned slowly. "I apologize if I've made you uncomfortable." Mira's eyes opened, luminous violet irises that seemed to see straight through him. "Discomfort is not what I feel when you look at me." She approached with impossible grace, stopping closer than any Calvary had ever willingly stood near him. The scent of her was intoxicating, rain-soaked cedar and exotic spice that made his head swim. "On my world, storms were sacred," she said softly. "They revealed truth when comfortable lies were washed away." Lightning flashed again. In that stark illumination, Rylan saw something in her eyes that made his breath catch. A loneliness that perfectly matched his own. "Come closer, human," she whispered. Every instinct screamed at him to maintain distance, to follow protocols, to remember the careful boundaries between their species. Instead, Rylan stepped forward. "What truth are you seeking?" His voice was rough. Her purple fingers, cool, slightly textured, brushed against his hand. The touch sent electricity through him that had nothing to do with the storm. "On my world, storms were sacred," she said softly. "They revealed truth when comfortable lies were washed away." Lightning flashed again. In that stark illumination, Rylan saw something in her eyes that made his breath catch. A loneliness that perfectly matched his own. "Come closer, human," she whispered. Every instinct screamed at him to maintain distance, to follow protocols, to remember the careful boundaries between their species. Instead, Rylan stepped forward. "What truth are you seeking?" His voice was rough. Her purple fingers, cool, slightly textured, brushed against his hand. The touch sent electricity through him that had nothing to do with the storm. "Perhaps the same one you seek when you watch me from your high perches," she said. "Why the sight of another's solitude can echo so loudly in one's own heart." The touch lasted only seconds before she withdrew. When she spoke again, her tone was carefully neutral. "My home has lost power. As colony engineer, would you consider it your duty to assist?" Rylan knew he was crossing a boundary, knew it and didn't care. "Lead the way." The eastern quarter felt like stepping onto another planet. Curved architecture rose in organic forms, illuminated only by bioluminescent plants casting everything in eerie blue. Ryland had never ventured this deep into Calvary territory. The stares of the few aliens they passed made his skin prickle. Mira's dwelling stood apart from the others, at the very edge of the sector. Its exterior was unadorned, a statement or a confession, Ryland wasn't sure which. "Few of my kind approve of my solitude," she explained. "To be without family group is unusual." Inside, the space was sparsely furnished, but unexpectedly warm. A small shrine dominated one corner, featuring a ceremonial weapon and a holographic image of a male cavalry with distinctive facial markings. "Tak," she said, noting his gaze, "my mate." The word hit Rylan harder than it should have. He turned quickly to examine the power systems, needing the distraction. What he found made him freeze. This isn't standard colony architecture. He opened his toolkit with hands that weren't quite steady. These modifications are military grade. Mira sat gracefully nearby. Tak was not merely a warrior. He was intelligence, what you humans might call a spy. Ryland's hand stilled. "That's not in your official refugee file." "Of course not." A small smile graced her purple lips. "Just as there are many things absent from your personnel file, Engineer Torres." His head snapped up. "How do you—" "I have made it my business to know who watches me. Your security clearance is impressive for a civilian contractor." The implications hung in the air between them, dangerous and thrilling. Ryland returned to his work, mind racing. His past with Earth's defense forces wasn't common knowledge. How much did she know, and why? As he repaired the complex circuitry, Mira moved around the space, lighting aromatic candles. She prepared a hot beverage, offering him a cup that smelled like spiced honey. "It is not poisonous to humans," she assured him with a hint of amusement. "In fact, it is quite stimulating." The liquid warmed him from within, bringing heightened clarity and awareness of the room, of her proximity, of the way the candlelight played across her purple skin, revealing intricate swirls that might have been natural or cultural markings. "This is excellent," he said. "A recipe from my homeworld. Tak and I would share it on stormy nights." Her voice carried no sadness, only fond remembrance that somehow made Ryland's chest ache. He finished the repairs. Soft amber lights activated, and in this new illumination, Mira was breathtaking. She stood closer than necessary. "Thank you," she said. "Few humans would venture here, especially alone at night." Few humans know what it's like to be alone in a crowded colony. Something shifted in her expression. "You lost someone too?" It wasn't a question. Ryland found himself nodding. "My wife. Illness, not war." Mira touched his hand again, longer this time. The cause matters less than the void left behind. The storm outside intensified, rain hammering the roof, lightning striking close enough to make the lights flicker. "You should stay until the storm passes," she said. "The buffer zone floods easily." Against every regulation and bit of common sense, Ryland accepted. As Mira moved to prepare another room, he caught a glimpse of something unusual. A data terminal with Calvary script scrolling rapidly across its surface. "What is that?" Mira paused, her back to him. When she turned, her expression was suddenly intense. "Perhaps the reason I noticed you watching me, Engineer Torres, and why I finally decided to speak with you tonight." She crossed to him in 3 fluid strides. "How much do you know about why we really came to your colony?" "The official story is that your people were fleeing persecution from the hegemony," Ryland said carefully. "Your ships arrived damaged, seeking asylum. Mara activated a hidden panel in the wall, revealing a sophisticated communications array that definitely violated colony protocols. She brought up a star chart showing territories far beyond human-explored space. The Calvore were not refugees but advanced scouts," she said, voice low and urgent. "My mate Tak was tasked with assessing human defenses, resource capabilities, and potential for alliance against the hegemony." Ryland tensed. "You're admitting to espionage." "I'm offering truth." She moved closer, her scent clouding his judgment. Tak discovered something that changed everything. Evidence that the hegemony had infiltrated human leadership. He believed an alliance was humanity's only chance for survival. The terminal displayed intercepted communications, conversations between colonial officials and unknown entities discussing weapon shipments and strategic positions. "This is why Tak died," Mara continued, her composure slipping to reveal raw pain. "Not in battle, as my people were told, but assassinated to prevent this information from reaching both our governments." Ryland studied the evidence, his engineering mind cataloging inconsistencies with official colony records. "If this is true, why tell me?" Mara moved closer still, her proximity sending involuntary shivers through him. "Because you have access to the colony's main communications array. And because I've watched you too, Ryland Torres. You question things, you notice patterns others ignore." Her hand touched his shoulder, the gentle pressure both reassuring and electric. "And because loneliness has made us both careful observers of others." The storm had settled into steady downpour, creating a cocoon of isolation around them. In this moment, they existed outside the carefully maintained boundaries of the colony. "Help me complete Tak's mission," she whispered. "Help me honor his sacrifice." Ryland knew he should report this immediately. His clearance carried obligations, oaths he'd sworn to uphold. Yet something in her earnest gaze gave him pause. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" "Tomorrow night, the colony's long-range communications will undergo maintenance. During that window, we could transmit Tak's findings to both our governments simultaneously." She moved even closer, her face inches from his. "I cannot do this alone." Against his training and better judgment, Ryland found himself nodding. "I'll help you verify this information first. If it's legitimate." Relief softened her features. "Thank you." The moment stretched between them, charged with more than conspiracy. Mara's hand still rested on his shoulder. In her eyes, Ryland saw not just determination, but something more vulnerable. "It is late," she finally said, breaking the tension. "You should rest before returning to your sector." But as she turned away, Ryland caught her hand. "Mara." She looked back, those violet eyes wide with surprise. "I didn't expect to feel anything again," he said quietly. "After losing Elena, I thought that part of me was dead." Mara's purple fingers tentatively touched his face, her skin cooler than human temperature, but sending warmth through him nonetheless. "Among my people, such trust is rare and precious, even more so between different species." The moment hung between them, fraught with possibility. Then Mara leaned forward, pressing her lips to his in a gesture she must have learned from observing humans. The kiss was hesitant at first, then deepened with surprising intensity. When they finally separated, her violet eyes were wide with wonder. "I did not expect to feel this, not after Tak." Ryland traced the subtle patterns in her purple skin. "Neither did I." The intimacy of the moment was shattered by the sudden wail of alarms throughout the colony. "Attention all residents!" Commander Prescott's voice echoed through every speaker. "A security lockdown is now in effect due to credible threats against colonial infrastructure. All civilians are to return to their designated sectors immediately." Mara's expression hardened. "We're out of time." The colony's emergency lights bathed everything in pulsing red as they raced through maintenance tunnels toward the communications hub. Security patrols forced them into longer, more circuitous routes. "We'll need 3 minutes of uninterrupted access," Mara explained as they paused at a junction. "After that, it won't matter if they catch us." Ryland checked his access codes. "My credentials should still work, but they'll trace the login instantly." They reached the outer door of the communication center, surprisingly unguarded. "Too easy," Ryland muttered, even as he placed his palm on the scanner. The door slid open. Inside, banks of equipment hummed with activity. Ryland moved to the primary terminal, while Mara connected TAC's data module. "Beginning transmission sequence," she murmured. The first warning came as a soft beep. "We've been flagged," Ryland said, 2 minutes before override. 67% transmitted, Mara replied, not looking up. The door suddenly sealed with an ominous clank. On the monitors, security teams converged on their position. They'll have to manually break through. Rylan initiated false alarms in other sectors, buying precious seconds. 93%, Mera announced. The outer door groaned as security began cutting through. Sparks flew, casting erratic shadows. Complete, Mera turned to him with fierce triumph. Both governments have received the full transmission. In one fluid motion, she pulled him into an embrace that was both grateful and desperate. Whatever happens now, you've honored tax sacrifice and shown me that connection exists beyond boundaries of species or loss. The door gave way. Commander Prescott stepped through, weapon raised. Step away from the consoles. Both of you are under arrest for espionage and sabotage. Rylan moved protectively in front of Mera. It's over, Prescott. The truth about the hegemony infiltration has been transmitted to both Earth Command and the Calvore Council. Prescott's face twisted with rage. You have no idea what you've done. He was interrupted by his communications device. An unfamiliar, authoritative voice emerged. Commander Prescott, stand down immediately. Authentication code Sierra 9 Delta. Your actions are being monitored at the highest levels. Slowly, Prescott lowered his weapon. It appears there has been a significant misunderstanding. Dawn broke over a transformed colony. Ships arrived in orbit, both human and Calvori vessels. Officials moved through administrative levels while security personnel were quietly replaced. Ryland and Mera were separated for hours of questioning. It was dawn before they saw each other again, in a quiet observation room overlooking the central plaza. The infiltration went deeper than even Tox suspected, Mera explained, her voice tired but relieved. Both our governments had suspicions but lacked proof until now. Ryland watched the activity below. What happens now? A true alliance, perhaps, one built on honesty rather than convenience. She stepped closer, her presence now familiar, comforting. My people's council has acknowledged my role in completing Tox's mission. The disgrace of my solitude has been lifted. Something in her tone made Ryland turn to face her. You'll return to your people's community then? I have been offered that opportunity, yes. Mera's violet eyes held his. But I find myself reluctant. Her hand found his, fingers intertwining in a gesture that bridged their different anatomies perfectly. The Calvori have a tradition for those who find unexpected connection after loss, she said softly. A recognition that some bonds transcend expected boundaries. Ryland felt a tightness in his chest. And what does this tradition entail? Time, patience. A smile touched her purple lips, and the acknowledgement that healing sometimes comes from the most unexpected sources. Outside, the first light of day illuminated the storm's damage and the beginnings of repairs. Like the community itself, broken but rebuilding into something new. I still have quarters in the western sector, Ryland said. They have an excellent view of the sunrise. Mera's smile deepened. I would very much like to see that. As they left the observation room together, colony residents, human and Calvori alike, turned to watch them pass. Some with surprise, others with disapproval, a few with thoughtful consideration. But in the warmth of Mera's hand in his, Ryland found he didn't much care. Some boundaries were meant to be crossed. Some losses, while never forgotten, could make space for new beginnings. And sometimes, when a voice whispers, "Come closer," the only right answer is to step forward into the unknown.